Right, so here we are on the cliff edge of Brexit, like the proper cliff edge this time, and our government are properly screwed this time, and we as a country, by extension, are also screwed. I thought you might like to know our options as we look at them. So, firstly, let's talk about where we are with no deal Brexit, that thing that was dead popular back in 2019 amongst a proportion of our MPs in our country, but is not at all popular at the moment after a brutal year of coronavirus. So, 6 points. Firstly, the internal markets bill. That, if we did no deal Brexit, would be there, as in that would have to come back because that's the promise that our government have made to put in what they call a safety net. Actually, it's a wrecking of a safety net. But if the internal markets bill was back there, that means not just no deal with the EU, it also means no deal with the US. Trump is now gone. We've got ourselves really stuck on that one after a summer of trying to suck up to Biden. They absolutely blew it with the internal markets bill. So that is really a hefty shafting that we would receive by going with no deal Brexit. We would be Billy no mates, not just on the continent, but also with the US, our most powerful ally. And when those two get together, you can bet that they would put pressure on other actors around the world for the UK to get back in line. Secondly, Scotland. It's reported in The Sun that Michael Gove is dead nervous that a no deal Brexit would mean Scotland breaking away. In fact, it's quite likely anyway, but that would seriously exacerbate it. And so that is another factor weighing heavily on their minds because the polling now on Scotland's independence is not what it was in 2019 when they were all feeling very bullish. Point three, a no deal Brexit would mean lots of sectors instantly screwed. Like science, if there was no deal for science, that would bugger our cutting edge. Also, with farming, as you've been hearing more recently, our exports would be absolutely slaughtered. Similarly, ironically, with fishing, there's alarm in the fishing community now that with no deal, where do they go and sell their fish and shellfish and so forth? And the Treasury, it is reported, is dead against no deal Brexit. Because here's another twist, after a year of coronavirus, our coffers are absolutely knackered. And if Rishi Sunak wants to come to power as after Boris Johnson, then it's going to be very hard for him to do so on a completely broken country, which was broken financially on his watch as treasurer. Point number four, we're not ready. Our borders are not ready in Dover, Calais, and now also in Northern Ireland. Lots of systems and paperwork and business preparation and hauliers are not ready. The computer systems are not up and running as they should. People haven't been given the training as they should. People aren't legally advised as they should be. So we are just not ready, which means extra buggery if we were to be coming out in just 1.5 months from now. Point number five, coronavirus vaccines are now here. What a time to screw up your border systems when you need to be importing a whole load of freshly packed vaccine from Germany. So Matt Hancock has been insisting that it's all right, we can fly them in. Yeah, these things need to be stored in specialist freezers. I mean, this is close to dry ice stuff. And so to try and fly that in instead of having it go through the normal routes may only get you so far, but you've just introduced a new mass shipping that you're then going to have to be able to clear from the airports as well. Again, you don't want to be screwing these things up at a time when you've been screwing a whole load of other logistic operations up and then just make it even worse through a no deal Brexit. And then point number six on just the no deal Brexit bit is that no deal is not forever. You do have to sort out flights. You do have to sort out cross-border agreements on so many areas of business and politics and citizens' rights and healthcare and so forth and so on. So it's not like it's a solution. You just take a whole load of damage while you're waiting to do all of the little mini deals that you should have done as part of a bigger deal. And the same pressures are going to be there on each and every one of them. Okay, so now let's move on to the deal. Here's the issue. You think a deal is going to save us? At this stage, a deal isn't going to save us. It's going to be so thin that it's going to feel a lot like a no deal, even though a no deal will be a lot worse. All of the sort of symptomatology of all the problems are still going to be there. And you're trying to juggle two things at the same time, two impossible things. I mean, this is Lewis Carroll kind of stuff. One, perfect sovereignty, so that you're not being told anything. Everything is on your own rules. But at the same time, you want to be continuing to share a market that was based on shared rules and rules that are shared at the EU level. So how are you going to do those two things at the same time, given that most people in the country right now, again, knackered out from a year of coronavirus, just want things to continue stably? That's all people want at this stage. Just don't throw more paperwork at us. Don't throw more difficulties. Don't throw more costs. Just keep things as close to normal as they are now. But that can't happen if you've got this absolutist stance on sovereignty. So the long and short of this is that if you do go and get a deal, then absolutely everyone, apart from a few defenders of the government, but absolutely everyone else, from the left, from the right, from the center, from up, from down, are going to be screaming that it's a shit deal. And they are all going to be right. And that is a hell of a thing to take upon yourself. So it will be disruptive. You will have, if you've got any compromise anywhere, you will have Nigel Farage jumping all over that. You've got Dominic Cummings now outside the tent who might jump all over it too. You've got the risk of a breakaway party on the right, so the Brexit party, whatever it's becoming, flaring up to try and take advantage of this. But then if you try and quell that by jumping in with all of their sentiments, then you get pulled back to no deal Brexit, and we've just seen what a horror show that is. So essentially, you've then got one more option, and this is your last option, and it's the option that has consistently worked for this and previous governments, and that is a delay. So originally, remember, we had a Brexit deadline, a Brexit date of 29th of March 2019. You probably don't remember that date, but at the time, we all had to have it tattooed upon our eyeballs. They were repeating that date. The date was even written into law so that it was absolutely inescapable. But then that got delayed to the 12th of April 2019. And from that little hop skip, it then became a long jump to the 31st of October 2019. Now this deadline, this one was deadly serious. And when I say deadly, I mean deadly as in Boris Johnson told us himself that he would rather be dead in a ditch than extend it. But extend it he did until January the 31st, 2020. And then that was Brexit Day, when Brexit officially happened, although the actual leaving, the actual real Brexit is 31st of December this year. So we've done Brexit in name only, as it were, but we're still part of all of those structures and nothing has really changed. So their best bet, given that they're not ready for no deal Brexit, they're not even ready for a proper deal Brexit yet because no one's prepared, okay? And they don't want any of those disruptions while they're trying to get in all the vaccines they need. Their best bet at the moment is to actually get another extension, kick the can down the road a bit further, prolong all the pain. You know, Brexit is such a sunny upwards, you know, why don't we wait for it just a little bit more so it tastes even sweeter when we get there? There's a problem, however, this time. We had the option of an extension. We had that built in to the withdrawal agreement. It was theirs. It was ours to just, you know, take as we wanted to the end of June. But now that built-in mechanism does not exist. So we're right to the wire. We don't have a free extension to call into place. So how do you get an extension? Well, here's where it gets tricky, because there are two kinds of negotiation, two kinds of agreements. There's an EU-only agreement, which is the EU performing within its remit, and then there's a mixed agreement, which involves all of the member states, because you're going outside the EU's remit, and you need to go and check with all those member states, not just the heads of states, but actually their parliaments. So if you want an extension, like a proper extension, what you would have to do is actually get the sign off of all the individual countries, and meaning that that would have to be signed off by all of their parliaments. Do we have time for that round of ratifications? No, we do not. So the EU doesn't have competence. It hasn't been given the gift for an extension. So what it can do instead, is it can do a temporary deal. So this would be a deal for about 6 months, which basically functions like an extension with some given agreements. And then that's like a gangplank tacked on to the gangplank that we're wobbling on at the moment. So what does that solve? It gives you your temporary extension. It gives you time enough to go and fix all of your paperwork and software issues for all of the borders, to get your vaccinations in for this winter. It gives you time enough for all of that. But what happens at the end of it? You got the same Brexit problem again. And if we're still threatening things with the internal market, but we could still have a crash out at the end of that gangplank as well. But that's actually the best bet for the government at the moment. Problem is with that, in order to even agree that deal that doesn't need the sign off of all the EU 27 member states, it needs the sign off of the European Parliament and the European Council. Usually the European Parliament goes first. Once that's sort of given it the nod, then all of the different heads of the countries can say, yep, if it's good with them, it's good with all of us. That's it. But the European Parliament have said, we're not going to sign off on any deal while that threat of the internal market bill and breaking international law keeps sitting there. So then that puts the UK in another bind, because obviously a deal would replace the need for that to stand. But if the EU are threatening, well, we're not going to do a deal with someone who's just trying to pass into law that they can tear up a deal that they've just done, then that puts this government in a bind where it might have to swallow humble pie and make promises, or take real action to get rid of that internal markets bill before the European Parliament and then the rest of the EU heads of state are prepared to sign off on it. And if they don't do that, well, we go right back to the no deal scenario, don't we? Because we've run out of time. So in conclusion, we are a far cry now from the contention that we hold all the cards. In fact, the only card that we did hold, the only Trump card that we did hold, was an aggressive Donald Trump promising to do a quick trade deal on super deregulatory neoliberal terms, and thereby set up a UK-US axis which was deliberately antagonistic to the EU. But with Biden coming in, that is gone. And Biden clearly is in a mood to do deals with the EU first, to back the Irish position solidly. And that means that I don't see any cards that the UK has to play at the moment. Given where we are financially, the whole notion that coronavirus is such a hit that no one's going to notice Brexit, that's true on the continent side, where they can take a hit, and they are continuing with their laws and processes as it was before. But with us in the UK, it's going to be a double hit that interacts, whichever route we go down now. apart from a temporary extension, it's going to be that double hit. And when people see more paperwork coming in, more encumbrance upon their lives, more rules and regulations and confusion and chaos, they will be able to directly attribute that to Brexit, and all the pain that we see in the country will be able to be traced to Brexit bureaucracy that's just come in because this government have absolutely failed in their fundamental promises. And I will stop there. So that's where we are, folks. Happy 2020.